Hello, how is everybody today? I trust everything is reflected on the day I've had so far. Very productive, managed to do some writing, managed to complete some insulation to a roof of that end building. Got full charge on the phone from the solar panel, so I thought I would share what's been happening over the last few days, really. Dreams have been off the scale for a start, so I'll talk about those a little bit as we go further into this video. Had some amazing email correspondence and messages and things, and requests for tarot card readings. The kind of tarot card readings I really love to do most. That is where I know no background information, when I've not actually been asked a question from the inquirer, something on the lines of, how would I be if I do this or if I do that? It's often spoken about and quoted as a biblical passage about not divining, not trying to look into the future. That is the sort of fortune-telling aspects, all the fakeries of zodiac readings, your daily forecasts you'd get in newspapers and things. That's not what it's about. You're a presence in the present, so all the tarot card reading is just confirming where you are at that precise moment, nothing more. What you do with the information, how you interpret it, and likewise I take my part in this. If somebody comes to me for a reading, then I can only impart what I see in the mind's eye, or what I get in. The closest I can describe it is like a telepathic communication in feeling. The door is always open for that. It certainly helps me. It helps the channel. It helps put food on the table for myself and the 3 cats now. So let's start with the dreams. They're definitely in colour. Not the first dream, but about 3, maybe 4 days ago, I had climbed up something like that tower. I think it's in Dubai, but it was taller than that. And there was other people climbing up. And I was saying, look, you've got nothing to fear. Don't look down. Just link. Come together. Because together we're stronger. But we're still individuals. It's not we the people. It's we the people, as in individual souls on a common quest. Not this sort of groupthink mentality where you could put somebody on a pedestal, and you can look across the whole spectrum of politics, as it were, and you'll see this, and along with everything else that's organised. So I didn't have any fear. I can't say I particularly like heights in this physical reality. But the next dream was even more magical. I was not in the building I'm currently in. It's, how would I describe it? Almost like an end Tudor house. And I'd managed to unearth a lower floor. And I'd done a lot of carpentry work in there. The 3 cats were with me in this dream. And I'd finished the project I was working on. I think it was installing electric wiring, possibly for solar. But as I stepped to the doorway, which is right on the corner, so it sort of implies it may have been a shop at one time. One moment. Just a little clearing of the throat. So I stood in this doorway, and along came these 2 badgers, which were very friendly, came up and greeted me. There was like a telepathic communication of good to see you. This was followed by 3 giant sloths, a young one, and then standing behind that was the mother, and standing behind that, which even taller, was the father of these giant sloths. And wow, my ears just started ringing. And then after that came this young elephant, not a baby elephant, but not a mature elephant, a sort of an in-between size. And I remember having this thought in this dream, I wish I had brought my phone here, fully aware that I was in a dream. But the thing with the lucid dreaming, if you wake up in the dream, you can just pause everything and just stop everything. But I thought, why would I want to do that? This elephant has come up and greeted me, and that's now walked off. And it's gone down this like a narrow street, almost like mock Tudor buildings, the sort of things you get a parade of shops in one of the London suburbs, or one of the many London suburbs. And a mixture of that and a mixture of older sort of Gothic style buildings. And I thought, yeah, let's just go with the flow. We'll follow this elephant. Intuitively in this dream. And it led me to look to be like an old school building, maybe 2 or 3 houses that had been converted, and it had been turned into this Christian help centre. I don't know what happened to the elephant, but I found myself going into this place, and they would feed you and clothe you, and it was all the fake welcome to our church and all this sort of thing. And in that dream I kept responding with a question to everything they asked. But the funny thing was, there was a little room where there was the incumbent, the vicar, and I suppose there must have been 3 church committee officials, and they actually gave away, not a whole pouch, but they'd give you away tobacco, and they would give you a certain amount of cannabis, enough for more than one day, and you could sort of go back the next day and get some more. And all very nice. And the other amazing thing was this vicar obviously had a sort of a fascination with tobacco paraphernalia. So there's all these old enamel tobacco tins and things such like, old books of matches and things. So the spiritual meaning of those animals, the one that I wasn't too sure about was the giant sloth. So I looked online, I just look at scroll down and just look at like the first sentence under each website entry. The majority of them said, if you see a giant sloth in the dream, it means slow down. There was one, of course, that said it means you're going too slow and you need to speed up. But I thought, well, which feels right here? And I interpreted that as being, because it wasn't one giant sloth, it was 3. So what I was seeing was it was representing mind, body, and soul. A trinity, as it were. And where do we go from here? So the same message came through on a tarot card reading. I believe it was Paul from Dove and Serpent Tarot saying about slow down. Nothing to do with the physical. It's more to do with the thoughts we create in the mind. It was a confirmation of, you know, the universe has got your back. You feel the universe has got your back. And my ears ringing again. So Sunday, I wanted to go to Monchique to get some food. I'd got enough for that day, but Monday there would have been a problem. I was running out of various bits and pieces. Apart from cat food, they always come first, I must admit. I always make sure they've got food before I've got food. So Sunday it was cloudy and intermittent rain showers all day, so it's like, we're not going today. So I had the plan, Monday morning I would walk to Monchique, sit up there all day, charge the phone, charge the battery pack as a backup, do some writing while I was there, do some shopping, and then come back. But I woke to the sound of rain. I thought, okay, plan B is we'll ask Keith if I can use a moped. And I put €2 of fuel in it, as a sort of reciprocal exchange, which obviously meant then I wouldn't be able to charge the phone or anything up there. So that was going to be plan B, but then it transpired plan C. Sebastian comes to my door and says, I'm going to Monchique, would you like to come? And I said, oh yes, please, that's fantastic. So I was able to go by car rather than sitting on a moped. Now, in the run-up to this, the phone had about 35% battery on it. It's like a dead spot in the battery, and it would fire up. I'd go on the banking app to move some funds so I could withdraw some cash from the cash point machine, and it would keep shutting down before I could even do that. 6 times I tried, and I thought, this is the universe saying, slow down. And how fantastic it worked out, the divine timing of it all, because I didn't have to do any transferring of money, and it was just as well because both the cash point machines had run out of banknotes, so you could only check your balance, so it wouldn't have been any good anyway. But sort of out of nowhere, I was owed some money for some time I'd spent on doing some work, and that came through, so I didn't have to transfer any money. But the beauty of the timing of this, and just going with, it's not divining, but you are creating the future. You're seeing the wish fulfilled, and you hold to that. So throughout all this, what I'm actually seeing in the mind, and what I'm creating in the mind, is I'm back from Monchique. I've got the supplies I need, and I'm sitting down, having a smoke, drinking a coffee, and that is how it went. What day? Oh, yeah, we're on Tuesday today, so that was yesterday, Monday. Excuse me. And I was also able to get back, take advantage of the solar power, charge this phone up, charge the battery packs up, coupled with being in balance and being more selective and discerning of what I watch on YouTube, which has actually been very little quality over quantity. So Archaics, I've been watching 1 or 2 of the latest videos there. I've listened to Lavette, I've listened to Silas Speaks and Lana A. Labonte. The thing to look at when you look at anything is ask yourself, will I benefit from this? Is there something that is going to help me internally? Let me just ask you a question here. What is your definition of being woke or being awake? Do you consider it to be looking at a subset of information and then being able to declare, I've got all the answers? I know this, a perfect example here is flat Earth. But that's just having your eyes slightly opened to what you're shown is not as it really is. But all these things have something in common beyond flat Earth, whether you think the World Trade Center was with aircraft or staged or all CGI, it doesn't matter. That's not the point here. It's being reflected. I keep seeing headlines on various channels about this fog. So what's it really saying? It's basically saying, see through the veil. What you'll find is everything in this that is external of you is a reflection. The way I could liken it, if you remember when you were a child and you had those little plastic bottles and they had like a soapy liquid, and you took the cap off and it's got a little plastic loop and you could blow bubbles with it. Great fun. I'd love to do that again, actually. But you imagine the consistency of that sort of soapy solution as it goes through the bubble. It's sort of like a circle on top, and it sort of drops through with the heavier liquid and forms a bubble underneath as well. So it forms like a figure of 8. You see, we are not from this reality. We've sort of dropped into this reality. And as we go through that sort of plastic loop, as it were, what actually happens is everything flips over, just like when you look at a reflection in the mirror. When you go left, what is shown in the mirror that looks, you sort of recognize it, but it goes right, but it can't move on its own. You have to move for it to move because it is only a shadow. So, how do I explain? Yeah, so Silas speaks. I'd recommend listening to. It's only a 13-minute video about the voice from behind the bush, the burning bush. By sort of definition, the creator, the supreme, the almighty, the father, whatever you want to call it, it's all seeing. So it has created a sun, a light bringer, a Lucifer, we can call it, that has gone on not just to go out into the world, but has actually created a carbon copy world and made an awful lot of mistakes. See, this is why the world spins. It's not anything external. It's the thoughts that keep going round and round and round in your mind. That's actually what spins. Because you're given stories with a certain spin to them. So, of course, you take in that information. It's like, what do I think of this? Do I believe what they're telling me or whatever? So, this supreme being has come into the creation of the light bringer and is keeping a watchful eye because it is all seeing, it is all loving. So it won't actually appear. How can it appear? Because you were created in the image of. You say it more times than you actually realize when you say I am. You are a representation. If you were to put it in a physical context, if you were to see God, it would look just like you. It is you, basically. You are a fractalized version that is all you're observing. And collectively, that is how it becomes all seeing. It's come into this creation. So we're not actually from here, we're just passing through it. I'm trying to think where else I want to go here, because there's a lot that's happened. What are we up to here? 18 minutes already. So how about this for divine timing as well? I've been having a wonderful email correspondence with a lady who knows quite a bit about the composer Anton Bruckner and his composition. So I'm right in my element there. And it's fantastic to have these dialogues. And this lady mentioned a Bruckner motet called Os Juste. It means the mouth of God. Now, would you believe, just prior to reading this email, that was the very piece of music I was listening to. Now, it is said that God likes praise. So what if I take 4 songs, which gives the initials Allo? So it's A-L-L-O. So that's Asperges me, which means purify me, followed by Libera me, which means free me, Locus iste, which means this place right now, the mouth of God. The Word was made flesh. So this is why I've been saying on videos, although not so much recently, the word Allo. Because I am casting outward, but it's internal. I don't expect any of you to say, oh yes, I love this piece of music. You may never have heard of it. You may not like that type of music. Art, after all, is subjective. Why Bruckner for myself? Well, for a start, 90 years separates the, the birth of this physical being with the departure of Anton Bruckner. That is 90 years less 144 days. As Rudolf Steiner says, if a physical body is not allowed to disintegrate, that soul cannot come back as a reincarnation. And of course, Bruckner's body has been preserved. It was, after 100 years, it was brought out, restored, and put back under the what is known as the Bruckner organ. I believe it's in St. Florian in Linz. And he is very much here. Which jogs my memory. The other day, YouTube played fine, Messenger played fine, WhatsApp, I could access messages, Telegram, I believe, as well. But when I went to go on Google and do a search for some writing I'm doing, it just wasn't happening. And I heard this voice say, put the radio on. And I thought, yeah, I'm just wasting battery, and what's the point of getting frustrated with the device? That is a primary example of waste of energy, even feeling the frustration and then exclaiming, ah, or effing phone, effing signal, whatever. That's a waste of energy. So I put the radio on, and what did I get? Bruckner's Second Symphony come through on the radio. The divine timing of everything, it's like, that's Bruckner playing a hand because his energy is still here. Well, this is what I'm feeling and sensing. You may not agree, but you're entitled to your opinion. So, coming back to the subject of awoke, it's not about anything in the external. A prime example, if you hear a statement which has information that totally conflicts with what you believe to be true, don't react and go on the attack and say, oh, that's just BS. Don't dismiss it. That's being closed-minded. It's not being open to new information, things you may not even looked in. This is why it is intuition. You go inside yourself, and you ask yourself, what is it that is triggering something in me? Is it a belief system, and do I know that belief system to be 100% true? When you can get beyond that, and then by extension of that, whatever the external is presenting to you in the moment, and I feel this perfectly illustrates what Jason means on our KX channel when he says about being fearless. You're not facing a physical army of horses on soldiers. Sorry, soldiers on horses. Told you it's a flipped reality. It's sort of armor plating with like lancers with spears that are coming at you. What is actually coming at you through that fog is all those what ifs and all those doubts you create in your mind, where the conscious mind will try and go out and problem solve a perceived problem that is just an illusion, it is just a ghost. When you can move beyond that and recognize, well, this isn't so pleasant, but I know the universe has got my back, and I know things are going to turn round. I know it relies on the divine timing of things coming into the physical reality. You're not putting an interference pattern out, which becomes a feedback loop from those thoughts you create and you project out, whether you say it verbally or whether you just think it. That is what awoke or being awake really means. Being in the present, being aware of yourself. A better explanation I can give to you that goes more into this is to listen to the latest live stream from Lana A. Labonte from Saturday night. What is it with Saturdays with the trolls coming out? But it's quite, you can have some fun with them. Lana handled it perfectly. She didn't react. She didn't get angry. And some of the questions were trivial, irrelevant, as it were, or just nonsensical. And some of the questions would be answered by actually listening to what she says and putting it into practice. Don't just be a hearer of the words, be a doer of the words. Also consider if everything is a reflection, you are given signs by the day and signs by night. You've got coming up, this has just come back into the mind. I saw a headline on, it might be Annie Botticelli channel, about 4 planets coming into alignment, and that number 4 again. So I would suggest that's mind, body, soul, and spirit. The planets, the wandering astral bodies, reflecting that, bring yourself into alignment. Something Lana talks about with the spine being in alignment, feeling in alignment, not feeling off balance. I feel that sort of makes that clear. Excuse me. So today is like a bit of a intermittent sunshine and showers, but again, that's reflecting every cloud has a silver lining. It's just whether you can perceive it. A level of awokeness, shall we say, will depend, and it will come out in your language. You will reveal much about yourself in that, more than sort of trying to prove somebody else wrong or just casting aspersions on their take on things. But going back to the Allo, asperges me. If you look at that word, asp, so it represents a snake, purges me. You could see that either way, as the serpent that is saying you won't die if you eat from the tree. But it comes back to the question, why, if this Adam and Eve in that story have eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, why have then eyes not been opened sufficiently to then eat from the tree of life as well? Because it is stated, are they to be like us? Their eyes have been opened. Well, how far had they been opened if they didn't instinctively or intuitively then go to that tree of life as well? See, this reality is very good. It's very convincing. But the only way that it can achieve immortality is through recycling. You've only got to look all around you at anything reflected in nature, for example. Think of the lifespan of a tree, or even a human vessel, anything. It goes through 4 stages. You have the birth and the growth, the growth, the sort of mature period, and then which leads to the decay and passing the threshold of death. That is only affecting the physical body. They're called remains because they're part of this reality. They're not from the original creation. So the being fearless is that recognition that all these thoughts and things, these fears and doubts that we have, are self-created, and they are all illusions, and they will pass just like the clouds, just like the very low cloud we could call fog or mist. But the mist is the mystery. Interestingly, if you try and put your headlights on a vehicle on main beam when it's thick fog, it just glares back. It reflects back. You need those fog lights that see under, because you want to see the foundation on which the thing is built, and those clouds are not coming from the ground. They're just hovering slightly above. They're not fixed to the solid earth. They are just something that will pass. But of course, like everything else, it's come with an awful lot of fear stories, by design, of course. But whether you can see through the stories, recognize the patterns that are being shown with everything, this whole perception of the controllers of this reality as being evil, for example. By what perception? From the mortal human perception? What about from the perception of the Supreme Being? It is all angles of light, it is all perceptions. From a mortal perspective, there are things that are, I will admit, disagreeable. But how many of them do I really know to be true? How many of them are just stories that circulate on the internet? Have I personally witnessed half of these things? No is the answer. I don't know whether they're true or not. But am I to import the fear from the story? Because it doesn't matter if the story is actually true or not. If the story has been put across in such a way that sufficient number of people believe it, it does take on a life that has no real rooted foundation in truth. It is about discernment. It is about being in balance in oneself. It is leading the impersonal life. I refer you to the audiobook by Joseph Benner. You can find it in the playlists. About leading the impersonal life, not taking things to heart, recognizing that if someone says you're this, you're that, they are playing the part of the accuser. As Lana points out, when you point the finger, you've got three that are pointing back. So the conscious mind might be pointing outward, but the body, the soul, and the spirit are saying something very different, and it is reflected in the physical action, whether we consciously know it or not. But when you can move past that, and you're secure in that knowledge that the universe really does have your back, this is why I went into the silence, because I've been through what at one time I would have been in a panic over. I would have been really worried about things. Not anymore, because I recognize that is a waste of my energy. You're here in this reality, in this physical reality, something you're subjected to time. That is your true currency. How you spend your time, where you focus your attention, is going to very much determine the reflection you get back from this reality. I can appreciate this reality, and I can also be secure in the knowledge that I know that it is just a construct. That is beyond any reasonable doubt, which is good enough for all the courts with anything. You've only got to look at the data that Archaic shows to show that things are repeating patterns. Therefore, it must be a construct. That's about the only thing we can compare it with. And it's backed up by observations from commentators throughout what we call history. But I can still appreciate it. This whole idea that hell is going to be eternal torment. You can make it hell if you so wish. You can come into this reality, you can absorb all those external stories, and you will import a fear into yourself, and it will feel like hell. It will feel very unpleasant, but it is of all of your own making. This is the fundamental difference. What are you funding? What mentality inside yourself are you funding? Is it one of fear, or is it one of happy, clappy, love and light, or is it somewhere in the middle? So you can appreciate the discomfort equally with the comfort, because we're in a realm where it is all perceived as a duality, hot and cold, up and down, and so on and so on. But when you can see both sides, comes back to the analogy I like to give about driving. You've got to be aware of an ever-changing scene around you. That's the only way you will see the Creator. It is in the action. Creation is about continuous flow, about continuous movement. That's why I followed the elephant. I knew even in the dream that the elephant symbolizes knowledge, remembering. Because that's what you're doing. You are remembering. You are not dismembering. You are creating new neural pathways. It's not a new world order. Again, that is a reflection, because you don't want it whirled. You don't want it going spinning around in your head. Yes, there is a flux, there is a flow with it, but at the same time, it's not gone into an out of control spin, because you are the controller of your thoughts, or at least I would hope you are. There's a saying about never let somebody else pick up the pen and write your life story for you. You could compare it with the computer game, something like Mario. It's on a timer, it's counting down. If you don't take control of that character, that screen will push that character along. So if you don't take control of your own vessel, your own thoughts, your own feelings, being able to acknowledge the things that come up inside you, the anxiety, the anger, whatever it is, the joy. When you can acknowledge all of those inside yourself, it will open up an entirely new world that won't look any different in the physical than how it did before. But again, look at what is reflected from the perceived evil. Let's take Hollywood. Think of actors and actresses. They get together for these award ceremonies. They move in certain circles. Royalty moves in certain circles. It's just the creator has come into multiple forms because it can. That's how it's all seeing. All at the same time. Some visible, some invisible. But if you can't see God in everything, you can't see God at all, basically. So everything is under control. It is all in hand because God is closer than at hand. So I really hope that has helped inspire you, uplift you, given you a slightly different angle of perception on things. Because I am speaking the experience I've already gone through, and it's just building and building it. I'm still at the stage of building the rock solid foundation on which I can then create a structure on top of. It's no good unless you've got a solid foundation on which to build. And that is the recognition of, I suppose you could describe that this reality has this lure and beauty of nature which you can appreciate. And it is a back screen on which you can add the details. But remember, the devil is in the detail. But at the same time, there's like a blanket that's been put over. So most of humanity are sort of like puppies in a sack trying to find an exit, trying to get out of here. Why would you want to get out of here when you've been given a beautiful opportunity to experience a physical reality, a material world? It's just slightly out of balance with the light bearer's shadow, which is Ahriman. The whole idea of this is a soul trap. Yes, it is. If you're a shadow and you sort of not fell in the dream but fell into the computer and you can only work in algorithms and you're looking for a way to get out of that, then in that sense, yes, it is a soul trap. But what sort of soul is that really? It's not one from creation. It's not one to really give away your power to. Far better to find that prodigal son, find the light bringer inside of yourself, and take it home. Home is where the heart is. You see, that bubble where it comes out and flips over, out now becomes in. The way out is in, always. It is in the intuition. It is in the I'm magic nation, the imagination. I imagine at I on. You're projecting out from the mind's eye. You're creating the future you wish for yourself in a benevolent way. You just see the outcome. You don't necessarily have to do it all for yourself. You can do it for just random people, helping them get through a queue in a supermarket by seeing a cashier come and opening up another till line. So that crowd then starts moving a lot quicker. All little things like that. It doesn't have to be big things. And of course it all happens in the unseen. Because if you declared it, which would be very egoic to go out and say, well, I caused all this, and nobody would believe you anyway. But that's also the other thing with people who say they're awake because they've looked into such as flat earth or whatever. They can be some of the most obnoxious people, to be honest, because they've fallen into a belief system. They're just another subset of very stubborn people who are very close-minded to anything else and only seeing it from one angle. Because this reality will give you everything you're looking for. Seek and ye shall find we're in a realm of duality, so that has a double meaning. So you're going to seek out there, or you're going to seek right in here, which communicates with up here, and your guide is your gut, your solar plexus, and your lunar plexus, as Levette is very wisely advises everybody about. It's not just the solar plexus, as the way Levette puts it, and it makes perfect sense to me. The sun is one eye, the moon is the other eye, on top of the two pillars, just below the temples. Between that is the real sun, which is it is in the earth. Where is it? It's right at the center of your heart. It is a tiny little star of very intense heat. See, this realm is actually totally flipped over, so the biggest is actually the smallest. You could liken it to the potential side of an atomic explosion. It's not the extrinsic loss of energy, which incidentally folds back on itself and resembles a brain. It's the potential, that spark that creates. But what are you going to create? Are you going to create destruction and devastation, or are you going to suggest and show by actions there is a far better way to do things? So a reminder again, anybody who wants a 3-card tarot card reading, by donation only, recommended €5, $5 or £5 sterling. If you really are stuck for cash, don't feel put off. Still come and approach me, please. It's about helping you. It's paying forward, to use another Levette expression. Bank that karma. Surely that's a better bank than the one where there is a love of money which creates interest. Far better to flip that over and go with what interests you, from which is the solid foundation on which you can build love. A prime example is, if you have no interest in a puppy, then love will not follow. You'll just ignore it and neglect it. But do you show an interest in it, you'll look after it, or in my case, cats. I just prefer cats to dogs, and I don't have anything against dogs. But just personal preference. But I'm not saying everybody should say you've got to like cats more than you like dogs. It's all personal preference, where individuals in a fascinating, wonderful reality. And I really hope you can get to this stage that I've got, where every day is wow, gratitude. I could never have thought that would happen in the way it has. And that's just building and building and building. So I suppose you could say I am coming out of the silence again, really, when I feel there is something worth sharing, of course. Oh, how about that? This is perfect. 44-minute video. Love to you all. Unconditional love to you all.